Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where we get the rare privilege of hearing and actually associating with Prabhupada and the great souls that are described in Srila Prabhupada's books, and my godbrothers who finished the Bhagavatam also, in such a wonderful way. Okay, we're a little late. I just had a little discussion with the devotees here in the room. What's going on?
The prayers he has.
Excuse me?
He has a prayer.
Oh, thank you. So Sanatana Goswami wrote a prayer about the book that we're reading, the Srimad-Bhagavatam, called Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. And hey, Prana, Haribol, nice to see you again. And it goes like this. Sarva Sastabdipi Yusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja, Sarva Lokaika Drikprida. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalindwan Dodita Ditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down the flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madguro Mad Mahadana, Madnistadaka Madbhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin, atini chochata kada, hanamun chagadachin mam, premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 You know, it might be a good idea if we made some of those, you know, and had stock so that when new people come in, we can give them. That would be a good thing to do. Project. Okay. All right, we've reached the 8th chapter of the 11th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, the teachings of Krishna to Uddhava. It's called the Uddhava Gita. And within the Uddhava Gita, which is quite a number of chapters, it's kind of like the Bhagavad Gita, but it's even deeper and more, deeper. And within those teachings, Krishna is explaining a story of how Yadu, King Yadu, who was a great king, the dynasty in which Krishna appeared is called the Yadu dynasty, and it's named after him. So he's very special. And he met a saintly person, a liberated soul, who was an avaduta, paramahansa. Means he was completely aloof from material nature. He didn't have any position. He wasn't looking for anything. He wasn't trying to achieve anything. And therefore he was wandering around, and he kind of looked like a madman. But King Yadu was very perceptive. He was advanced spiritually also, and he could see that this person was special, spiritually advanced. And so he started inquiring from him. And he said, how did you get like this? How did you get all this knowledge? That was before he even talked to him. That's how advanced he was. And he said, well, I've been studying the world using my intelligence. And this is what I've learned. And he explained that he had 24 gurus. And one by one he's explaining what he learned from them. Text 33. This material body is like a house in which I, the soul, am living. The bones forming my spine, ribs, arms, and legs are like the beams, cross beams, and pillars of the house. And the whole structure, which is full of stool and urine, is covered by skin, hair, and nails. The 9 doors leading into this body are constantly excreting foul substances. Besides me, what woman could be so foolish as to devote herself to this material body, thinking that she might find pleasure and love in this contraption? Purport. The 9 doors leading into and out of the body are the 2 eyes, the 2 nostrils, the mouth, the 2 ears, the genitals, and the anus. Vanksha, or spine, also means bamboo, and indeed the skeleton appears to resemble a bamboo construction. Just as bamboo can be immediately burned to ashes or chopped into pieces, similarly, the material body, which is constantly deteriorating, may at any moment be crushed into powder, cut into pieces, drowned, burned, suffocated, and so on. Eventually, the body must disintegrate, and therefore there is certainly no one as unfortunate as one who has dedicated himself, heart and soul, to this flimsy body, which is filled with unpleasant elements. Text 34. This speech is actually made by a prostitute who was becoming enlightened by becoming disappointed one night. She was looking for a customer, and one after another, yes, this one, no, yes, no, yes, no. And after a while she didn't get any customers that night, and she got disgusted. And now she's speaking like this. Translation: certainly in this city of Videha, I alone am completely foolish. I neglected the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who awards us everything, even our original spiritual form, and instead I desired to enjoy sense gratification with many men. Text 35. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is absolutely the most dear one for all living beings, because he is everyone's well-wisher and Lord. He is the Supreme Soul, situated in everyone's heart. Therefore, I will now pay the price of complete surrender, and thus, purchasing the Lord, I will enjoy with him, just like Lakshmi Devi. Purport. The real friend of all conditioned souls is the Supreme Lord, and only he can award the highest perfection in life. By following the example of Lakshmi Devi, who always remains at the lotus feet of the Lord, one will certainly obtain eternal happiness. One should make the best use of the material body, which is a bad bargain, and surrender one's body, mind, and words to the Lord. Paying such a price, one can purchase the Lord, who is everyone's dearmost well-wisher. Thus one's ancient propensity for sense gratification will automatically be controlled. 36. Men provide sense gratification for women, but all these men, and even the demigods in heaven, have a beginning, and an end. They are all temporary creations who will be dragged away by time. Therefore, how much actual pleasure or happiness could any of them ever give to their wives? Purport. In this material world, everyone is basically pursuing his personal sense gratification, and thus everyone is being ruined by the influence of time. On the material platform, no one actually helps anyone else. So-called material love is simply a cheating process, as the lady Pingala is now discovering. Text 37. Although I most stubbornly hoped to enjoy the material world, somehow or other, detachment has risen in my heart, and it is making me very happy. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu must be pleased with me. Without even knowing it, I have performed some activity satisfying to him. Text 38. A person who has developed detachment can give up the bondage of material society, friendship, and love, and a person who undergoes great suffering gradually becomes out of hopelessness, detached, and indifferent to the material world. Thus, due to my great suffering, such detachment awoke in my heart. Yet how could I have undergone such merciful suffering if I were actually unfortunate? Therefore I am, in fact, fortunate and have received the mercy of the Lord. He must somehow or other be pleased with me. Text 39. With devotion, I accept the great benefit that the Lord has bestowed upon me. Having given up my sinful desires for ordinary sense gratification, I now take shelter of Him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 40. I am now completely satisfied and have full faith in the Lord's mercy. Therefore, I will maintain myself with whatever comes of its own accord. I shall enjoy life with only the Lord, because He is the real source of love and happiness. Text 41. The intelligence of the living entity is stolen away by activities of sense gratification, and thus he falls into the dark well of material existence. Within that well, he is then seized by the deadly serpent of time. Who else but the Supreme Personality of Godhead could save the poor living entity from such a hopeless condition? Purport. Pingala stated in a previous verse that even the demigods are unable to give actual happiness to a woman. One may question, who has authorized this lady to reject even such exalted personalities as Brahma, Shiva, and the other demigods? The answer given here is that if one actually wants to solve all the problems of life and go back home, back to Godhead, then the only solution is to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. It is well known that the demigods themselves are subject to birth and death. As stated by Lord Shiva himself, Mukti Pradata Sarvesham Vishnur Eva Nasangshayaha. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone. Text 42. When the living entity sees that the entire universe has been seized by the serpent of time, he becomes sober and sane, and at that time detaches himself from all material sense gratification. In that condition, the living entity is qualified to be his own protector. Purport. In this verse, Pingala states that by the Lord's mercy, a self-realized soul can see that the entire universe is existing within the jaws of the great serpent of time. Certainly this is not a promising situation, and one who sees it loses his desire for sense gratification. Thus, by the Lord's causeless mercy, the spiritually sane living entity can protect himself from illusion. Since Pingala is now glorifying the personality of Godhead for his mercy in awarding salvation, the following question might arise. Is she worshipping the Lord out of love, or is she merely a salvationist, desiring liberation from material existence? In answer, it may be said that in her Krishna-conscious situation, she is already liberated, even though remaining in this world. Her program will now be simply to render loving service to the personality of Godhead, without any personal desire, including that of salvation. Text 43. The Avadhuta said, thus, her mind completely made up, Pingala cut off all her sinful desires to enjoy sex pleasure with lovers, and she became situated in perfect peace. Then she sat down on her bed. Text 44. Material desire is undoubtedly the cause of the greatest unhappiness, and freedom from such desire is the cause of the greatest happiness. Therefore, completely cutting off her desire to enjoy so-called lovers, Pingala very happily went to sleep. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 11th canto, 8th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled The Story of Pingala. Jai Pingala Devi Dasi Ki Jai. We clap after every chapter's over because it's like a play, this gigantic play that's like this long, and it's like an act is just over, and we want more. Give me more. Encore, encore, encore. Okay, anybody want more? Okay. Oh, all right. 9, chapter 9. Detachment from all that is material. The Avadhuta Brahmana describes his seven remaining gurus, beginning with the Kurara bird. He also describes an additional guru, one's own body. The instruction received from the Kurara bird is that attachment creates misery, but the person who is unattached and has no material possessions is qualified to achieve unlimited happiness. The Avadhuta Brahmana learned from the foolish, lazy child that by becoming free from anxiety, a person becomes capable of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead and experiencing supreme ecstasy. The instruction received from the young girl who kept just one conch shell bracelet on her wrist is that one should remain alone and thus steady one's mind. Then only will it be possible for one to fix one's mind completely on the personality of Godhead. Once several men arrived to ask for the hand of the young girl whose relatives had coincidentally left the house. She went inside and began to prepare food for the unexpected guests by beating rice. At that time, her conch shell bracelets were making a loud noise, rattling against each other. And in order to stop this sound, she broke off the bracelets one by one, until at last only one remained on each arm. Just as 2 or more bracelets make noise, if even 2 people reside in the same place, what to speak of many? There is every chance of mutual quarrel and useless gossip. Point of anecdote, Prabhupada. He once said, if there's more than one person in the room, there's a political situation. The Avadhuta Brahmana also received instruction from the arrow maker, who was so absorbed in constructing an arrow that he did not even notice that the king was passing right by him on the road. In the same way, one must strictly control one's mind, concentrating it in the worship of Lord Sri Hari. The Avadhuta Brahmana learned from the serpent that a sage should wander alone, not have any residence, should be always careful and grave, should not reveal his movements, should take assistance from no one, and should speak little. The instruction obtained from the spider, who spins his web from his mouth and then withdraws it, is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead similarly creates from out of himself the whole universe and then winds it up into himself. From the weak insect, who assumed the same form as the Peshakrit wasp, the Avaduta Brahmana learned that the living entity under the sway of affection, hatred, and fear attains in his next life the identity of that object upon which he fixes his intelligence. Seeing that the fragile material body is subject to birth and death, one who is sober should become devoid of material attachment to this body and should properly utilize the rare gift of human life in the pursuit of knowledge, endeavoring always for the achievement of the highest goal. Text 1, that's a summary of the chapter. Text 1. The saintly Brahmana said, everyone considers certain things within the material world to be most dear to him. And because of attachment to such things, one eventually becomes miserable. One who understands this gives up material possessiveness and attachment and thus achieves unlimited happiness. Text 2. Once a group of large hawks who were unable to find any prey attacked another, weaker hawk who was holding some meat. At that time, being in danger of his life, the hawk gave up his meat and experienced actual happiness. Purport. Incited by the modes of nature, birds become violent and kill other birds to eat them or to steal meat captured by them. Hawks, vultures, and eagles are in this category. However, one should give up the envious propensity to commit violence against others and should take to Krishna consciousness, whereby one sees every living entity as equal to oneself. On this platform of actual happiness, one does not envy anyone and thus sees no one as his enemy. Text 3. In family life, the parents are always in anxiety about their home, children, and reputation. But I have nothing to do with these things. I do not worry at all about any family, and I do not care about honor and dishonor. I enjoy only the life of the soul, and I find love on the spiritual platform. Thus I wander the earth like a child. Text 4. In this world, two types of people are free from all anxiety and merged in great happiness. One who is retarded and childish, fool, one who is a retarded and childish fool, and one who has approached the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the three modes of material nature. Purport. Those who fervently seek material sense gratification are gradually pushed down into a miserable condition of life, because as soon as one even slightly violates the laws of nature, one must suffer sinful reactions. Thus, even materially alert and ambitious persons are constantly in anxiety, and from time to time they are plunged into great misery. Those who are nonsensical and retarded, however, live in a fool's paradise, and those who have surrendered to Lord Krishna are filled with transcendental bliss. Prabhupada said, the pig and the Paramahamsa, they're happy, and everyone else in between is miserable to one degree or another. The pig and the Paramahamsa. Therefore, both the fool and the devotee may be said to be peaceful in the sense that they are free from the ordinary anxiety of the materially ambitious person. However, this does not mean that the devotee and the retarded fool are on the same platform. A fool's peace is like that of a dead stone, whereas a devotee's satisfaction is based on perfect knowledge. Text 5. Once a marriageable young girl was alone in her house because her parents and relatives had gone that day to another place. At that time, a few men arrived at the house, specifically desiring to marry her. She received them all with hospitality. Text 6. The girl went to a private place and began to make preparations so that the unexpected male guests could eat. As she was beating the rice, the conch shell bracelets on her arms were colliding and making a loud noise. Text 7. The young girl feared that men would consider her family to be poor because their daughter was busily engaged in the menial task of husking rice. Being very intelligent, the shy girl broke the shell bracelets from her arms, leaving just 2 on each wrist. It actually should be 1 on each wrist, leaving just 2 on each wrist. What?
It goes into the next verse.
I know, I'm an editor, I'm sorry. It's part of my duty. Sorry. Text 8. Thereafter, as the young girl continued to husk the rice, the 2 bracelets on each wrist continued to collide and make noise. Therefore, she took 1 bracelet off each arm, and with only 1 left on each wrist, there was no more noise. Text 9. O subduer of the enemy, I travel throughout the surface of the earth, learning constantly about the nature of this world. And thus I personally witnessed the lesson of the young girl. Purport. The Brahmana sage here explains to King Yadu that he is not presenting theoretical knowledge. Rather, by wandering throughout the world, the observant and thoughtful Brahmana has personally experienced the lessons learned from all of the above-mentioned gurus. Thus, instead of posing himself to be omniscient like God, he humbly explains that he has faithfully learned these lessons in his travels. Text 10. When many people live together in one place, there will undoubtedly be quarreling. And even if only 2 people live together, there will be frivolous conversation and disagreement. Therefore, to avoid conflict, one should live alone, as we learn from the example of the bracelet of the young girl. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given a nice example in this regard. Because the young girl mentioned in this story had no husband, she had to fulfill her duties as a host by removing her bracelets so that each wrist held only 1 bracelet only. In the same way, the process of Jnana Yoga, or spiritual advancement, by philosophical speculation, demands that the speculating sages live alone without any other association. Since jnanis have dedicated their lives to speculation, there will undoubtedly be endless argument and quarreling on technical points if many jnanis live together. Therefore, to keep a peaceful atmosphere, they must live alone. On the other hand, a king's daughter who has been duly married to an aristocratic prince fulfills her duties to her husband by dressing herself attractively with innumerable ornaments and approaching him for love. Similarly, the goddess of devotion, Bhakti Devi, decorates herself with the innumerable ornaments of the Vaishnavas who come together to relish the sweet sound of the holy name of the Lord. Because pure Vaishnavas do not intimately associate with non-devotees, it may be said that they reside alone, and thus they also fulfill the purpose of this verse. There cannot be any quarrel among pure Vaishnavas, because they are on the real platform of desirelessness, not wanting even salvation or mystic powers, what to speak of sense gratification. Because they are all devotees of Krishna, they may freely associate with one another for glorifying the Lord, as stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 3:25-34. Nakatmana tam mes sprihayanti kechin mat pada seva bidata madiyaha yin yonyato Bhagavatak Prasajja Sabhajayante Mama Paurashani. A pure devotee who is attached to the activities of devotional service and who always engages in the service of my lotus feet never desires to become one with me. Such a devotee who is unflinchingly engaged always glorifies my pastimes and activities. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented on this verse as follows. The young girl in the story kept only one bracelet on each wrist so that there would be no noisy conflict among the bracelets. Similarly, one should give up the association of those who are not devoted to the Supreme Lord. This is the actual lesson to be learned. A real Vaishnava is always pure and faultless in character. However, in those places where non-devotees congregate, there will undoubtedly be envious criticism of the devotional service of the Lord, and those who falsely attempt to analyze reality without the Supreme Personality of Godhead will create much disturbing noise in the name of philosophy. Therefore, one should remain in those places where the Supreme Lord is properly worshipped according to the Vedic standard. If everyone is dedicated to glorifying the personality of Godhead, Krishna, there will not be any impediment in mutual association. However, in a place where people have many different purposes besides the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, social dealings will certainly be disrupted. One should therefore avoid the association of those who are inimical to devotional service. Otherwise, one will be frustrated in achieving the spiritual purpose of life. One who always keeps himself in the company of the devotees of the Lord is actually living alone. If one lives in a community where the only consideration is the pleasure of the Lord, then one can avoid the contradictory situations caused by many persons competing to satisfy their own material desires. This is the lesson intelligently understood by the Brahmana from the bracelets of the young girl. In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya quotes the following: Asaj janais tu sangbaso na kartavya gatanchana yavat yavach chabahubi saj janai satuk muktidaha. One should not under any circumstances live with those who are not devotees of the Lord. On the other hand, one should stay with many devotees because such association awards liberation. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Joy. Text 11. Having perfected the yoga sitting postures and conquered the breathing process, one should make the mind steady by detachment and the regulated practice of yoga. Thus, one should carefully fix the mind on the single goal of yoga practice. Purport. One should develop vairagya, or detachment, by observing that all material things are doomed. Thus, one should take to the regulated practice of yoga, which in this age means the process of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the Avaduta Brahmana is recommending Bhakti Mishra Ashtanga Yoga, or the eightfold mystic process, yoga process, performed as an offering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The desire to enjoy the material world is so strong that the mind wanders here and there uncontrollably. Therefore it is stated, Driyamanam, the mind must be fixed that in the goal of life, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the perfect stage of mental concentration called samadhi, there is no longer any distinction between internal and external vision, since one can see the absolute truth everywhere. In the mystic yoga process, one must sit properly, and then it is possible to control the different airs within the body. When the breathing process is controlled, the mind, which is dependent upon the actions of the bodily airs, is easily fixed in higher consciousness. But although the mind may be momentarily controlled, if one is overcome by desire for sense gratification, the mind will again be lost. Thus, this verse emphasizes vairagya, detachment from material illusion. This is attained by abhyasa yoga, the regulated practice of Krishna consciousness, which is the highest yoga system, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 647. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatenan tadatmana shradhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. And of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Text 12. The mind can be controlled when it is fixed on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Having achieved a stable situation, the mind becomes free from polluted desires to execute material activities. Thus, as the mode of goodness increases in strength, one can completely give up the modes of passion and ignorance, and gradually one transcends even the material mode of goodness. When the mind is freed from the fuel of the modes of nature, the fire of material existence is extinguished. Then one achieves the transcendental platform of direct relationship with the object of his meditation, the Supreme Lord. Purport. The interaction of the three modes of nature creates great obstacles in one's path of spiritual advancement, and there is danger that one may be thrown down into the darkness of ignorance. Those who are experienced in practical psychology know the dangers of the uncontrolled mind and constantly endeavor to bring the mind under control. If one can free oneself from the influence of the material modes of passion and ignorance, then life becomes very auspicious. Controlling the mind and thereby freeing oneself from the influence of the material modes of nature is the only means by making actual progress in life. The word yasmin in this verse, according to Srila Sridhar Swami, indicates the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the reservoir of all pleasure. Giving up the material propensities of the mind does not mean merging into an impersonal existence, such as that experienced in dreamless sleep. As stated in this verse, satmena vridhena, one must become firmly established in the mode of goodness, and then gradually rise onto the spiritual platform, where one may dwell in the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 13. Thus, when one's consciousness is completely fixed on the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one no longer sees duality or internal and external reality. The example is given of the arrow maker, who was so absorbed in making a straight arrow that he did not even see or notice the king himself, who was passing right next to him. Purport. It is understood that when a king moves on a public street, he is heralded by kettle drums and other musical instruments, and is accompanied by soldiers and other members of his retinue. Thus, despite this royal extravaganza passing right by his workshop, the arrow maker did not even notice, because he was completely absorbed in his prescribed duty of making an arrow straight and sharp. One who was completely absorbed in loving devotional service to the Absolute Truth, Sri Krishna, no longer pays attention to material illusion. In this way, the word bahis, external, refers to the innumerable objects of material sense gratification, such as food, drink, sex, and so on, which drag the senses of the conditioned soul into material duality. The word antaram, or internal, refers to memory of previous sense gratification, or hopes and dreams for future materialistic situations. One who is seeing everywhere the Absolute Truth, Sri Krishna, categorically rejects both internal and external illusion. This is called mukti pada, or the status of liberation. On this platform, there is neither attraction nor aversion to sense objects. Rather, there is loving absorption in the absolute truth, Krishna, and an overwhelming desire to please him by devotional service. One who gives up the reality of Krishna will be forced to wander uselessly in the kingdom of mental speculation. One who cannot see that the absolute truth, Lord Krishna, is the background and basis of everything that exists, will be bewildered by the false concept that there is something that is not Krishna. Everything emanates from the Lord, and He is the Lord of everything. This simple understanding is the actual existential situation. Text 14. A saintly person should remain alone and constantly travel without any fixed residence. Being alert, he should remain secluded and should act in such a way that he is not recognized or noticed by others. Moving without companions, he should not speak more than required. Purport. The previous narration concerning the shell bracelets of the young girl demonstrates that even saintly persons engaged in ordinary yoga processes should remain alone to avoid conflict or disturbance. In other words, persons engaged in ordinary yoga processes should not even associate with each other. When Gopakumar was traveling through the universe and he was going up one planetary system after another, and he got to Tapaloka, which is after Maharloka and Janaloka, where there's social life and big festivals and kirtan parties and that. But when he got to Tapaloka, that's where the four Kumaras live, and they're all yogis. And all they do is just sit and meditate all day. And they would sometimes come out and talk with him, and he would be elevated by their association. And then all of a sudden they would go to their caves or bungalows or whatever kutirs or whatever. And then he was just standing there. Where's the worship? Where's the Lord? So he couldn't be completely satisfied there because he was a cowherd boy from Govardhan. So eventually he had to move on. So it's like this. Ordinary yogic processes should not even associate with each other. This verse indirectly refers to the serpent who, fearing attack from human beings, keeps himself secluded. From this example, we learn that a saintly person should not associate with ordinary materialistic people. He should also avoid having a fixed residence and should wander unnoticed by others. Our engagement in material existence is the cause of our unhappiness. Such engagement destroys the real purpose of our life, Krishna consciousness. Somehow or other, one must give up the deep-rooted attachment to material society, friendship and love. One must practice detachment, and by surrender to the principles of Krishna consciousness, one's auspicious life will begin. By organizing one's life according to the Varnashram system, one can take the first step in self-realization. In other words, one should accept an honest occupation and regulate his sex life, either by giving it up entirely as a brahmachari or sannyasi, or by living as a married householder. Without regulating one's occupation and personal life, there will be chaos, and it will be very difficult to make spiritual advancement. The attachments to material society, friendship, and love are based on a long previous experience in the material world. They are great obstacles in the path of transcendental understanding, and if one maintains them, spiritual progress will be most difficult. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught by his example and precept what a devotee should and should not do, and obedience to such principles brings one to the path of supreme perfection. Thus, one has to rise above ordinary social custom, which directs the living entity toward useless sense gratification. Text 15. When a person living in a temporary material body tries to construct a happy home, the result is fruitless and miserable. The snake, however, enters a home that has been built by others and prospers happily. Purport. The snake does not have the proclivity to build his own home, but rather lives in a suitable place constructed by other creatures. Thus he does not entangle himself in the labor of home building. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out that although materialistic persons take unlimited pains to invent and mass produce electricity, automobiles, airplanes, etc., ultimately these things are meant for the convenience of the Vaishnavas who are preaching Krishna consciousness. The karmis will always go to such trouble, and the devotees will always offer such laborious productions to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by engaging them in His loving service. The devotees, being concerned with the ultimate perfection of life, do not personally struggle for material advancement. On the other hand, there is no need for the devotees to artificially imitate the austere lifestyle of ancient times. A devotee's goal is simply to serve Krishna as nicely as possible. Therefore, the devotees willingly accept beautiful mansions and all types of material opulences, not with any personal attachment, but only so that these things can be engaged in the loving service of the Lord. If one engages such things with a desire to enjoy them, one falls down from the platform of pure devotional service. Text 16. We're almost done. Excuse me? Something I missed?
There was like still a paragraph or so, or a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Purport. Wait a second. One falls down from the platform of pure devotional service. There's something after that?
Materialistic persons are only interested in exploiting their so-called yoga practice, and then it goes on.
That belongs in another verse. Yeah, that was edited to go to another verse. Text 16. The Lord of the universe, Narayana, is the worshipable God of all living entities. Without extraneous assistance, the Lord creates this universe by His own potency, and at the time of annihilation, the Lord destroys the universe through His personal expansion of time and withdraws all of the cosmos, including all the conditioned living entities within Himself. Thus, His unlimited self is the shelter and reservoir of all potencies. The subtle pradhan, the basis of all cosmic manifestation, is conserved within the Lord, and in this way, not different from Him, and is in this way not different from Him. In the aftermath of annihilation, the Lord stands alone. Make a note of that paragraph, because that may be something that didn't transfer over from the actual text to the NFO file. That happens sometimes. Purport. As will be explained in verse 21 of this chapter, God's independent creation and annihilation of the universe can be compared to the spider's creating and withdrawing his web. The word eka, or one alone, is mentioned twice in this verse to emphasize that there is only one Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that all universal affairs, as well as spiritual pastimes, are conducted by His potency alone. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, this verse refers to Karnarna Vashayi Vishnu, or Mahavishnu, lying in the causal ocean. The words Atmadara and Akhilashraya both indicate that Narayana is the reservoir or shelter of all existence. Atmadara indicates that the Lord's personal body is the shelter of everything. Mahavishnu is the plenary portion of Lord Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whose body expand the innumerable potencies that manifest the material and spiritual worlds. According to the Brahma Samhita, these innumerable worlds rest within the Brahma Jyoti, or spiritual effulgence, also emanating from the Lord's body. Thus Krishna is Ishvara, the supreme controller. Hare Krishna. So we'll stop our reading there and make a note of that paragraph. Does somebody have a book? Is that paragraph also missing in that book, or is it there?
It's there in the book.
It's there in the book, okay. Alrighty. Okay, so now we come to our open mic program. We got a moving mic and it goes around, a bumblebee mic, buzzes around the room. And if anything that you heard stuck in your mind and you want to reflect on it, to share with us, or if you want further discussion on a point that came up, or if you have questions, please feel free. Hare Krishna. And off the hot seat. Okay. Yes, Prana. It's nice to have you back, by the way.
Hare Krishna. Nice to be back. I really like the story of Pingala. It's like representative of just the conditioned jiva's situation and coming to is that we try to enjoy. I mean, basically what it's saying is sex and money.
Yeah.
That's the main bottom line. And so it's like we're trying to enjoy material sense gratification. I liked the verse she said. I so stubbornly tried to enjoy sense gratification, but then that frustration, that which causes the detachment, is actually the mercy of the Lord. And then I just like how she says, and then she sits on the bed and goes to bed peacefully and happily. And that's so nice because, that's really what we're looking for, is a peaceful mind and go to bed peacefully and happily. And when these material desires, the material sense gratification, it's like a haunting. It's like we're haunted. And so...
Bhaktivedanta Thakur talks about that. How long will you stay on the lap of the witch called Maya? I was also thinking in that section how, the fact that it was almost poetic that she could just sleep happily, meaning that she wasn't attached and she also wasn't averse. Because if you're too attached, and you're also too averse, you end up always thinking about whatever it is that you're attached to or averse to, and you can never, your mind never finds equilibrium, it never finds peace. And there's a nice verse that says that how can there be happiness without peace? Nasti prayasya bhadyashu nityam bhagav. No. Nasti.
It's in the 4th chapter.
It's in the 2nd chapter. No? Nasti buddhi ayuktasya achayuktasya bhavana. Oh. Maybe it's the 3rd chapter.
I think it's after the sacrifices, all the different types of sacrifices we've talked about. I think.
That's another verse. But maybe it is, yeah. Okay, let's look it up. This is really a nice verse. No, I think it's in the... You looking?
I'm looking.
Excuse us, we're looking. You going?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And please come again. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Hare Bol. Thank you.
Yeah, that's in 266.
266, exactly. Yes, that's what I thought. Nasti. Nasti buddhir ayuktasya nacha yuktasya bhavana nacha bhavyatak shantir ashantasya kutasukam. This is actually this Pingala's, one who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. Then how can there be any happiness without peace?
I felt like it was very encouraging. It's a very encouraging story.
Absolutely.
Of her heartfelt prayers to the Lord, and what she feels that the Lord is her actual source of happiness. I think it's encouraging to us conditioned souls to also kind of go for it, because I feel like I want to be happy, and I'm tired of being frustrated and suffering. So I'm taking encouragement from her prayers.
Yeah, I think we all are, aren't we? That's kind of like who we are. That's who we are. We're all constitutionally full of bliss and knowledge, eternally. Yes, go ahead, Prana. Take us there.
I have one more on. It said the Avadu Brahmana said, however, in a place where people have many different purposes besides the pleasure of the Supreme Lord's, social dealings will certainly be disrupted. Or that was in the purport, actually, about the bracelets. And I was noting how it says people have many different purposes besides the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So it seems like even in devotee community, devotee circles, if we are having mixed devotion, that means we want Krishna's pleasure, we also want something for ourselves, so inevitably there will be contention. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. There's in this verse, 13th chapter, text 8 through 12, there's a list of what Krishna defines as knowledge. And one of in the list, one of them is aspiring to live in a solitary place, and another one is detachment from the general mass of people. So that doesn't mean, and then in what we just read, in the purports, but Vishwanath, I think it was saying, that if you live with devotees, it's like living alone. In the sense that if you're actually with devotees and living with devotees and trying to be a pure devotee, then the social pressure keeps you, because there's always social pressure. If there's people living communally, there's always social pressure. But in the material world, the pressure is to go out and have fun and go to this, place and that place and enjoy. So everybody's always doing that. But here, all the devotees are trying to be devotees, and they're trying to keep each other, in the regulated practices of devotional service, and keep each other safe. Therefore, where was it? It's one of the prayers of one of our acharyas that says that I would rather be inside a cage full of fire than live, outside the association of devotees, outside the community of pure devotees.
I think in the Ramananda Roy, and when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy are speaking, and Mahaprabhu was asking Ramananda Roy questions, one of the questions was, what is the greatest, misery? And Ramananda Roy says that I know of no intolerable misery except to be bereft of the association of devotees.
Yes. Therefore, as devotees, when we go out to preach, we're going out to give the association of Krishna to others. And if we stop doing that, then we take the association of the materialists and we become agitated. But if we're actually, sincerely trying to give Krishna and we get fixed and do that, then we're not touched. It's like prophylactic protection, complete protection. that also fits the bracelet thing, the bracelet analogy. Yes. Please, bring the Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. In one of the paragraphs,
Introduce yourself, because we've got a whole bunch of people out there in cyberland.
Yeah, I'm Sanmati.
Sanmiti.
Yeah. I'm Krishna devotee rather than Sanmati.
Obviously, otherwise
Yes.
you wouldn't be here.
In one of the paragraph we read, like being secluded and practicing the pranayama, like breathing technique, observing the breathing, which reduces we cannot control the mind, but by focusing on the breath, the thoughts gets lessen, and it is more on focusing on the self is more easier. But as situation makes us to come outside, the Maya is so strong, it grabs. That is where I find little difficult. I lose that identification will take over.
Therefore, Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, he rejected that practice. Did you know? In the 6th chapter, Arjuna rejects the platform of Astanga Yoga. And instead, Krishna directs him to Bhakti Yoga. Because in Bhakti Yoga, we're always chanting Hare Krishna. And we're chanting Japa, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And what happens is, automatically the breath gets regulated. If you chant your rounds properly, your breath automatically comes regulated. But not only that, you're always thinking about Krishna, who is the supreme goal. You know, therefore, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama evas kevala, kalo nasteva, nasteva gatiranyata. In this age of Kali, there's no other means of perfection, gatir anyata, other than the holy name of the Lord, the holy name of the Lord. 3 times, the holy name of the Lord, and 3 times, no other way. So, double your pleasure, double your warning also. So yes, when we hear the scriptures, you'll hear these things, but ultimately in this age that we're living in now, especially after Lord Chaitanya appeared, then if we take to this chanting of Hare Krishna seriously and take initiation and learn to chant a prescribed number of rounds on your beads and learn to chant them, you know, not 15-minute rounds or 20-minute rounds, 40-minute rounds, you know, we learn to chant in a reasonable amount of time so we can do our own other services also. And then automatically all those techniques, Abhyasa Yoga, that's described, because in the Gita, Arjuna said this effort is like trying to control the wind. Try to control the mind. Chanchala Himana Krishna. Chanchala Himana Krishna. Pramati Balabhadridam. Tasyaham Nigraham. No, Tasyaham Nigraham Manye Vayar Eva Sudushkaram. It's more difficult than to control the wind. And Krishna says, Partanai Vehana Mutra. No, he says, Mahabaho. Something said Mahabaho, Mano Dur Nigraham Jahan. Mano Dur Nigraham. It's even more difficult than you think. Because Durgraham means difficult and Vigraham means difficult and Dur Vigraham means very difficult, even more difficult than you think. So he acknowledges that, Krishna. But then he says, but it's possible by practice, constant practice and detachment. And then he takes them right into Yoginam Api Sarvisham, which we heard chanted in the verses we heard today, the purports. Yoginam Api Sarvisham, Madkate Nantaratmana, Shadhavan Bhajate Yuma, Ma Te Yukta Mamaha. That if we, that yogi who is always thinking of Krishna with love and faith, is the topmost yogi of all. So therefore you can relieve yourself of that burden of trying to keep yourself, aloof from everything by absorbing yourself in Krishna, in the Mahamantra and the holy name, and these scriptures. Then you'll get attached to Krishna, and then you won't have to fight to control your mind because you're out in the material world and everything's coming at you, and you'll see Krishna everywhere. You'll see everything in connection with Krishna, and therefore you'll never forget Krishna, and you'll never be attracted by Maya. You'll be safe. That was Lord Chaitanya's special mercy. And I'm losing my voice. Hare Krishna. We started doing the 7th chapter today, the last chapter we're going to do. And I have to be prepared tomorrow morning, so I'm going to stop now. Thank you very much, everyone. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 4:30. Tomorrow afternoon, Sunday. So it's 4:30 in the afternoon, right here in Radha Lane Live Studios. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow. Hari Bol.